Hi guys, and welcome to today's reading vlog where we're gonna lock in and try to see how many newly released books I can read together with y'all over the span of the next 1 week, because I've been kind of consolidating some of the newer books that have been coming out so far this year. This week specifically is also going to be a big one in the publishing world, and right now at least all I want to do is lock in and get to some of them because I've been anticipating them for so long that I do believe that this week's going to be such a fun one, which is why let's just jump right in. Those are our plans for today, and I'm already so excited. So now for some quick context, some of my most anticipated books of the year, especially some of the ones I've added to my own 26 in 2026 book read list, they have been released so far quite a bit throughout the beginning of the year, at least at the moment, over the past few weeks, and I've actually been holding on to them so I can hit them all together in one specific vlog, which is why here we are. We'll be doing that this week as I try to see how many of those I can read. There's a couple new releases also coming out this week that I've been looking forward to for a bit, which is why we'll kind of lock in over those as well. And in the college side of things, it's gonna be an utterly hectic one, which is why I kind of wanted to do this to give myself almost like a break, because what's better than kind of locking in on assignments and other projects and stuff as I'm actually listening to a book I was excited to get to, and so I know I'll be productive as well while we do that, which is why those are our plans for today. I'll be audiobooking some new releases, seeing how that goes as I'm finishing off my work, and already I just know this is going to be such a fun one because some of these books I already know that they're going to be so good that it's going to be such an amazing time overall, which is why that's what we're doing today. I did already start the first book for this video last night as I was kind of posting out this week's video. I was making its thumbnail and I had nothing to listen to, and because it's a shorter book in terms of length and I'm listening to it sped up on audio, I have only about 1 hour left, which is why that's what we're starting off with in today's video. It's a really exciting one, but I won't reveal it yet because surprises, which is why I'm gonna go continue listening to it, probably fix my nails up because they look really ugly right now, and if I end up getting to a bunch of my things off my checklist this week, maybe we'll reward myself towards the end of the week by doing my nails again together, which is why let's prep for now, let's keep them ready, and I'll do that by continuing to listen to the current audiobook that I'm in the middle of, kind of finish that out and come see you guys in a bit with our first book completed. But so far already so excited, having a great time, and I just know this video is gonna rock so hard and be one of my favorites of the entire year, because what do you mean, all these books I've been waiting for so long now, I get to read all of them in one go in this week, and it's just gonna be so incredible. I know it, which is why that's what we're doing. It's gonna be fun, and now I'll see you guys in a little bit. So it's the first update time. I did go ahead and finish our first book out as well, but I did want to stay a little bit and ponder over my thoughts, which is why it's been a bit since I finished, but I definitely have some things I've thought over to kind of speak about, which is why here I am now for the update. I ended up getting to the first book in the video. It's called Half His Age. It's the new Jennette McCurdy book, and for context, if anyone's heard of her name, it's because she also wrote the book I'm Glad My Mom Died. I read that at least 3 years ago at this point. I think it was 23 I read it in, or maybe even 22, I'm not really sure. But I remember really enjoying that, especially the way she wrote it, because it was this book that made me uncomfortable while reading it, but also it was the story of her life, and it was the first memoir that I've ever read, so I feel like that definitely set a high benchmark for everything else to come. And so, when I found out, which it was fairly recently, that she was coming out with a new book this year, I knew I was on the edge of my seat to get to it, because again, she's an incredible author in my opinion, and I really wanted to see what she'd come out with next, and so this was the book. It is written as a fictional story, but it definitely feels really real the way she's done it, because we follow our main character. She's called Waldo. She's a teenager, 17 years old and whatnot, and she has this thing wherein she's very lonely in life because of the kind of situation she has around her. So her mom is a single mom. She had Waldo when she was a teenager, so she's fairly young as well. She has this thing wherein she keeps recycling between a bunch of men, and then every time she gets dumped by them, she goes into this spiral wherein Waldo is left all by herself and stuff to kind of be the adult of the family essentially, and they live in this trailer park, so people keep coming and going and she feels distant from that. The other thing is that the only other relationship she has in her life is with her best friend, who I feel throughout the book spends it almost judging her, so she doesn't really feel too close to anybody, which is why we have her kind of portrayed in the sense wherein she's being almost a consumer of these toxic channels to kind of just feel some sort of gratification, which means she'll go through every single outlet that even though she knows is negative, even though she knows is not good for her, she's still going to kind of indulge in it just to feel something. And it's done in this interesting way because at some point she realizes that she's starting to like her creative writing class professor, and so this entire book then becomes a conversation about her affair with her older teacher. And again, keep in mind she's 17 years old, he's much older. It's not a love story, please know that going in, it's very important, but it kind of does explore like a bunch of other topics as well that again conversation comes up around, and a lot of themes and stuff to dissect about the fact that he is not supposed to be desirable in any sense. He's not attractive, he's got a wife, he's got a kid, he's so much older, but she still wants that specific connection with him because she feels like he sees her, except when she starts getting it, she's not sure about that, so she's trying to connect with him on every single emotional level. And again, the thing is, it's so interesting because like she's obviously the victim here, but the way it's portrayed, the story shows that she's so much more than the victim, not necessarily from the perspective of one, which is why you get to see again so much more in terms of themes, in terms of the story, in terms of what's going on, in terms of like the emotion and just the rawness of it, which is why I feel like it definitely is an uncomfortable read. But at the same time, literature is not supposed to be comfortable to portray and push across a meaning. So I feel like I definitely did enjoy this book. I had a fun time kind of reading the story, not enjoying it, but reading and kind of getting through with it to see where it would go, because I was, curious about that. But also it felt really weird to read because it felt like I was looking into someone's like diary and stuff. And so, that made me feel a bit gross. Apart from that, yeah, I'm really happy with the ending of the book. It is shorter and I do wish it was a little bit longer because I was starting to enjoy, I guess, the themes and just the stuff that was being spoken about in it. Heavy on the literature side, so I feel like the comparisons that were made and the kind of striking deeper meanings that you're supposed to like start to understand for yourself, I was having fun kind of going through with that, kind of trying to figure that out for myself. And so it definitely feels like it ended a bit early, but I still feel like I'm happy, like I said, with the ending. And while I do wish we had a little bit more just to see where she'd end up the character, it was still fun to go along with because I had a good time with the literature, not necessarily the story, which is why I'm confused on my rating, because again, it's a weird book to read overall. It definitely shows you complexities and I guess realism and stuff, and she definitely feels like a real human out there. It shows you like the whole vast range of emotions. It's just, it feels weird as you're doing that. It feels like you're prying into someone else's story, which I mean all fictional books feel that way, but then this one specifically felt even more than that. And overall I'm not sure, so maybe I'm gonna give it like 3-4 stars, something like that. But the best way I can describe her, if you want like a quick feel for it, is that she's a teenager that feels like she'd be obsessed with like the Tumblr era and grunge aesthetic for some reason, because there's a lot of talk about like overconsumption in this book and just the way she like goes about with it. I don't really know, the shopping sprees, the addictions, and it's again like a metaphor for other things, but still it just makes me make that connection, and for some reason it worked in the favor of it, which is why here we are. I'm done with it now. And again, let me just remind you that if you are reading this, please go in knowing that it's not a love story, it's deeper than that, but it's still good to go and read about, because I feel like just the way it's written is just cutting and I guess like bold and raw, but it's done in this like really interesting way, and I had a good time. One thing I do want to say before I end my review is the fact that I'm really grateful that the author depicted the relationship between the two of them, or at least the affair that was going on, because it doesn't classify as a relationship in any sense, as disgusting as she should, because it is, because I don't feel like any bit of it was glorified, and that in my opinion is done correctly, because again, this stuff is not normal, it's not supposed to be okay, and just the way it made you feel uncomfortable throughout is a great testament to that. So I'm really grateful she portrayed in this way wherein it's extremely gross and you are aware of that as you're reading it, because it's an important message to kind of get across, and it was a good time overall in that sense, which is why again, a deeper book, feel like this could definitely be broken down into a classic a few years down the line, kind of studied and looked into the themes and stuff. And I do believe that already online there's like a bunch of like polarizing opinions on whether people like it or hate it, but it's just something I feel like you need to look deeper into and understand more thoroughly before you start, criticizing it. But anyway, I had a good time, so I'm gonna give it 4 stars, and we're done with it now. So forgot to mention, but in my opinion this is more of like a brain power sort of read, not something lighthearted, because you definitely have to think about it as you're reading it, and it definitely is like weird and gross, but I definitely do feel like that's still important, again like I already touched on, because it covers the human experience, and while she is creepy, she can still go through a bunch of other things throughout because of the human experience. Nothing is like simply like one dimensional, it's supposed to be 3D and whatnot, and that just feels like a good depiction of the way things were happening in this book, which is why that's something I also wanted to quickly mention. Moving on, because I do want to go downstairs and have dinner right now. I'm kind of hungry, which is why here we are. After my break, I do think I'll be coming back tonight, working a little more on assignments and starting our next book, which is why I think I'll see you all directly tomorrow now once I have things to say about it. But tomorrow is like a big release day in the industry and whatnot, because there's like a bunch of new releases coming out tomorrow for some reason of all days, and a couple of them are really high on my list. So hopefully if I get the time tonight, I will start another book and then kind of try to finish that off before, so we can kind of get to tomorrow's books as they come out. But if I don't end up starting anything, we'll just start tomorrow's new releases when they come tomorrow basically together, because I've been looking forward to those for a bit as well, which is why I don't know what we're doing next, but I do know that it's gonna be another fun new release hopefully, which is why let's just see what happens. I have a few high expectations and hopefully they will be hit, which is why I'm gonna go now, and I'll see you all in a bit, and bye. So it's now the next day. I did not end up staying up too much of the night, so I did start the book, but I didn't, finish most of it last night, which is why today I locked in over the span of today evening and continued our next book. And now that I'm done, I'm here to update you because I have so many things to say, but basically the one I've finished is the new Feeney book. It's called My Husband's Wife, and one thing about me is the fact that every time she comes out with a book at this point, I read it. So I've read 3 of her books at this point, but all of them have been kind of made for me because the plot is really interesting. It always draws me in, but the actual execution of it, I find the story kind of slow and boring, and then the twist, by the time it comes, I'm already checked out, and it's not that incredible in my opinion. It's kind of guessable. I've read better thrillers, so I was just like not expecting a lot, just went into it because I again found the plot really interesting as per the summary on Goodreads, and so started it. And all I have to say is, if you haven't read this one yet, go pick it up. This will literally become your newest favorite thriller. I'm like actually shaking, it was that good. But basically, for a quick premise, we follow our main character Eden, and she's basically living like the picture perfect life. So she and her husband have just moved into this old mansion. It's kind of like quaint and whatnot in this small town, and the mansion's called Spyglass. Very important, keep that in mind. The small town's called Hope Falls, and it seems to be like heaven on earth. Literally, it's perfect. It's like a small tight-knit community. Everyone's like supporting each other, kind of being there for each other. Really sweet, really cool. And she's also living her perfect life in the other sense that she's married to her husband, obviously, who's like a CEO, really rich, really handsome, so that's working out great. Also, the fact that she's an artist and she's having her first like exhibition the next day, and because the community is like so supportive, everyone's gonna show up to like support her and just be there for her on her big day, and it's like a huge milestone in her career and whatnot, and she's so excited. Except the day before, or I guess the same day technically, I don't really know, she decides just to go for like a quick run in the evening, and so she like takes whatever she feels is necessary, in the sense that herself and literally nothing else, her keys, that's all, and she goes out on the run. But when she gets back, for some reason the key is not working in the lock, and she doesn't understand what's happened, but apparently the lock's changed and whatnot, so she ends up ringing the bell. And lo and behold, this other woman answers the door to her house with her husband in it, and apparently this woman is like basically the carbon copy of her, except like 10 years older. And now Eden's wondering who this is, why she's answering the door, and then the woman who answers the door claims that she is the Eden Fox married to her husband, which is Eden's husband essentially, and the husband actually comes out and corroborates the woman's story, not Eden's. So suddenly Eden has lost her identity. Her phone was in the house because she went on the run and she didn't take it with her. She only has keys that don't really work because the locks are changed, and the husband won't agree to her. No one around town can like recognize her. They all think the other one is the Eden, and then there's like no one else to kind of confirm her actual story that she is Eden, because she doesn't really have like friends and whatnot. She's kind of like a loner. So now she's trying to figure out why this woman is stealing her identity and who's lying, because her husband is backing up the other woman's story, not hers, and the cops are having this one Eden, the correct Eden, arrested in, and there's like a bunch of other things happening. So someone's a liar clearly, and there's quite a few secrets involved, and that's present timeline. We also have like a past timeline from 6 months ago, wherein we follow a different woman. She's called Birdie, and she lives in like London and whatnot, and she's actually kind of having her worst life in comparison. She just got diagnosed with the fact that she's got cancer, so she's got only a little bit left to live, and she found out that her grandmother actually died, and now she's inherited Spyglass, the old mansion house and whatnot, and she doesn't know what to do with it because she's dying anyway, and that's basically the storyline. Now coming out from there, from like a bunch of other circumstances, she actually figures out this like service that tells her own death date, when she's gonna die and whatnot, because she's been diagnosed at this point, and so she's trying to like get her affairs in order, figure out what to do next. And then we kind of move back to our present timeline, where this other couple owns the Spyglass mansion, so you're trying to figure out what happened where, how these timelines intersect, and it makes sense at the 50% mark why it happened, and then later in the story how it actually makes sense. But all I have to tell you all is that this was such an insane book. I genuinely went into it, the first beginning of it at least, kind of a little bit bored, because like the plot, it makes sense, it's kind of fun to go along with, but it's kind of slow in the sense that I was getting checked out. I was waiting for something something crazy to happen, and it didn't really happen the first 50%. It's kind of like a trust in the process sort of book. When the second half picks up, y'all, especially when like the plot twists start to come, my jaw was on the ground. Did not expect that. I was stunned into silence, because what do you mean she came up with this and she actually went there? I did not guess a single bit of it for context, and so the entire time I was just like, no way this is happening, kind of like on the edge of my seat with my popcorn, because what do you mean the author was ready to take it there? And all I'll say is this will be the most insane thriller you've ever read, with like the craziest twists ever, because it's insane. I don't know how it happened, but it's wild how it all connects towards the end. I could not guess it, because of which I had like the best time ever, and I'm gonna give it 4 stars. If I keep thinking about it, I'll up that rating, because it was insane. Again, I just feel so blindsided, which was the best thing ever, and now I can't wait to get to more of her backlist, because this was so fun and I had the best time ever. So we had another great book overall, and now today was actually the day a couple new books got published and released, so I'll have to go figure out which one I want to pick up first, but I'll be going ahead and picking up one of those and reading it tonight and seeing what happens. So I'll see you guys now directly tomorrow once I have updates, and that's basically what's going on right now. But again, already a great time, and I'm so excited to see how it goes. So here we are. It's now the next evening. I started the next book for this video last night, locked in this evening, finished it out, started our next book after that as well, and I'm halfway through, and then I figured I'll put down my work and come in for an update, because it's been high time that I haven't spoken. But basically yesterday, like I kept saying, was like a big day in the publishing world, because a couple of like my most anticipated books were coming out at the same time. One of them being Liz Tomforde's new book, so in the Windy City series, it's like a spin-off called In Her Own League. The second one being Haleypham's new book. She's like a booktuber I love watching. Everyone's probably heard of her. And the thing is, I didn't know which one I wanted to get to first, because I've been waiting for both of these for so long now that it was kind of hard to choose. But I ended up going with Liz Tomforde's, because I don't know when Haley's new book will come out after this one next, so I'm trying to like pace myself before I get to it. I will in the span of this video. It's just I want to hold back a little bit, and so I went with this one, and all I'll say is best choice ever, because this wasn't a 5-star read, do not get me wrong, but having read this and considering the fact that my first read of this entire year was Caught Up, also by Liz Tomforde, the third in the Windy City series, I have not stopped thinking about that since the day I read it, basically my first read of the year. And especially after having read this book and getting more of the Rhodes boys, especially the main couple from that book, all I'm gonna say is I'm upping the rating of that one. It's now 5 stars. It's also my first 5-star of the year. I have found it thanks to this one, and so lots of compliments basically to be issued with this one. But this one specifically, we don't follow any of the main couples or team players. We actually follow a couple of people who have been fan favorites right from the beginning, and so the author gave us a book on them, which is why it's like a spin-off, not part of the original series, but I'm happy it's here anyway. Basically, we follow our main girl, so she's called Reese, and our main guy called Monty. Reese, her granddad actually owns the baseball team that Monty works for, so it's called like the Windy City Warriors, where Kai, he used to work, and Isaiah. And the thing is, her grandfather's retiring, so she gets passed on to like be the new team owner and stuff, and like look after management and do all these other things. But because it's like a man's world, every single move she makes is like under scrutiny, because she's a woman, and because even though she's overqualified, even though she's been training literally since she was a kid, she used to like spend all her like spare days and whatnot hanging out at the field with the players, calling them to her birthday parties and stuff. No one takes her seriously because she's a woman, which is why she needs to be really careful with her actions, because everyone's like looking really close into it with like a magnifying glass. One wrong step, the media is gonna hate her more than they already do, and so a lot is on the line for her. Monty, our field manager, we've been coming across with him for like a couple books now as well. He was introduced in Caught Up, my favorite like book at this point, and I've always loved his dynamic since, so I was like waiting for him to get his own book, because he's actually Miller from that book, her dad. And so it's really weird reading about his book, but at the same time, listen, he's cool, so I had to get to it. And he's kind of like the field manager for the team, so he like runs the team and whatnot. He's kind of making sure all his players are at the best, basically doing a field manager's job, except the players are more to him than just players, and the sport is more than just a sport. He looks at it as his own like family and whatnot, and it's like his home and it's like second heart and whatnot, more than just like a hobby or like a job. And so when she comes in with her like ice cold determination to be the best in the league, despite the fact that everyone's like underestimating her because she's a woman, she comes in with like new tactics and business policies and stuff that make her think that she's like icy. And because of that, he's kind of determined to like shield his team and his players and people away from her, because he's like not sure if she has the best intentions for the team, and so he's like kind of wary of her. But then as they start hanging out and as he starts seeing the way the world treats her and whatnot, especially because she's only got got the best in mind, but she's just so wrongfully villainized. You know, they start spending time together, there's like sparks and chemistry, and they start falling for each other, and it's again unlikely because he's like someone's dad. He's basically a single father, much older than her, and you know, it's also the fact that his contract for the next season is not renewed, so people might take it in the wrong way that he's trying to use her to get his contract again for the next season. And there's like a power dynamic, so she's like the team owner and he's like one of her employees technically. But the way it works, this entire book, I was giggling so hard, happy to be back in this world, happy to be back with the Rhodes brothers especially. And all I'm gonna say is I love the banter, I love the tension, I loved their whole like love because it was so sweet. And this one just hit so hard for me that I have to say it, 4 stars. But also this is the reason that I also bumped up the rating of Caught Up, because I've been pondering over it for the past few days, just haven't made up my mind, but this made me do it. So this also was the reason I found my first 5-star read of the year technically. So in a way I'm happy. But yeah, here we are, I'm done with it now. I'm so happy I got through it, and this was just incredible, everything I would have ever hoped for, especially since these characters were introduced, because like the way their chemistry like literally blows up right off the bat and whatnot. They kind of hate each other, but in the way that transforms, and the way you have like emotional development. Romance books just don't do it anymore the way this one did, because it was so amazing. I had the best time ever, and 4 stars. Now after having finished this, I could have picked up Haley's book, and I will in a bit, trust me, but I really just wanted another sports romance, because it feels so weird having said goodbye to that world specifically, even though we are getting like a different spin-off series of hers. So I wanted like another sports romance series, and the last one in a different series actually came out recently, so I ended up picking that, which is also Goodbye to Another World. It's kind of sad, but I was in the mood for like a sports romance, so you cannot blame a girl, which is why I picked up my next book halfway through. I'll be done in no time whatsoever, and I'll come update you all. But so far I'm having the most like giggly time ever, so it's like amazing either way. And then tomorrow I actually do need to go to college and submit like a bunch of assignments, which is why today we might be pulling an all-nighter, which is why I'll come update in a bit once the next one is done. But I think we'll be doing like another couple books easy tonight and whatnot as I'm working on assignments, and then the college commute tomorrow, which is why see y'all in a bit once I have more updates to give on so many more books. But so far I'm having like the best time because I found an amazing read. I bumped up a previous one into 5 stars. I'm having the best time at the moment, and I'm going to read Haley's book next. So like, what do you mean? It literally sounds perfect to me. That's my dream idea, and I was waiting for this day for months now, so it's come, and I'm happy it has, because it's truly the best time. So enough raving, I'm gonna go get back to my books, and I'll see you guys in a bit, because this is literally my dream playing out in real time. And yeah, I'm just gonna go keep going on about it. After a while, Sarah J. Maas is coming on the Call Her Daddy podcast apparently tomorrow, so that's happening. And you know, a lot of other things are going on. The Naturals, that series is apparently getting another book, I think. So again, lots of things happening in the publishing world, especially in the scheme of new books, which is why this video also feels perfect in terms of like the recording timing. But anyway, here we are. I'll go have fun with the rest of my things, and I'll see you all in a bit now once the next one's done. But so far, it's already the best time ever. So like, how is it gonna get better? You know what I mean? Hi guys, so it's now the next day. I did end up going to college, so there was like a lot going on with that basically, but I got home kind of late today, all thanks to like the traffic and stuff on my commute, which kind of led me to reading more of my book. But then I was too exhausted, so by the time I got back and whatnot, ended up napping for a bit, and here we are right now for the next update. I did stay up yesterday as well and read some, so I have quite a few updates to give you, but basically I'm done with our next book now, which was gonna be the other sports romance that I picked up, because I was really in the mood for one after In Her Own League, and after kind of going back and giving Caught Up 5 stars, because that one just truly deserves the world. But basically I went ahead and finished the audiobook of that, started something new on Kindle. I'm now 60% into that, because I'm just gonna be so for real, I had quite a bit of spare time on my hands today considering how long commute took, which is why, listen, I just continued, which is why I'm done nearly with the next book at this point. 40% left, can lock in and finish essentially, and I will, but I wanted to update first about this one and then move on to the next, which is why here we are. This is the last one in the, I believe Vancouver Storm series. It's called The Wild Card, and it's so funny because the previous book was like the spin-off of like a different series and whatnot, kind of bringing that to an end. But I still believe in my heart of hearts that this is not the end for this one specifically, because the way the author kind of ends it off, there are like newer characters that have been introduced kind of joining their hockey team and stuff, and there are like angles and tropes kind of thrown in with them, so I'm assuming we might just get like a spin-off series if it's the end of the main one. But I still think we'll get more of these characters, because there is kind of like an open ending for like different characters and their situations and whatnot. And I'm gonna be so for real, I really like that character specifically, Luca Walker, if you've read the books. So if he gets his book, I wouldn't be mad and whatnot, which is why I'm praying this is not like the complete final end, but I finished this out thinking it's the last in the series and I'm done at this point. Basically, no offense to anyone who likes either of the books and whatnot, I'm not trying to do that, but you know, having read both of them back to back, it's funny drawing comparisons because this actually feels like the knockoff version of the previous book we read, which is so funny because this has been out longer. But essentially we have Tate, who's like a retired star player, so he had like a fatal like injury early on, to the point where now, even though he loves the sport, he cannot play, which is why he's working on the team as the coach, essentially kind of leading his boys, his players to kind of victory because he can't be like alongside them to do it with them, because he hurt himself while he was playing a few years ago. But regardless of that, there's no like resentment built up or anything. Everyone loves him. He's like basically the golden boy of the team. Everyone's like happy and obsessed with him, and he is a single dad, so he attracts like a lot of attention in the media and stuff because everyone just thinks he's like really hot. On the other hand, we have Jordan. Now this is so funny because this just feels like such a mirror replica of the previous book, but we have her father, who she doesn't have like the best relationship with because he did not show up for her mom's funeral, and he was kind of like an absentee dad growing up. And so, you know, she has this thing wherein she has her own differences with him and she prefers to do things completely like opposite to him almost. So she like is busy running her bar that we keep seeing across the books and whatnot right from the very beginning, called the Filthy Flamingo, where all these like hockey characters hang out. And from the outside she like shows this exterior wherein she hates hockey, but these people have essentially now become her people because of how much they've hung out together, and you don't really know her backstory, but you know, she'd do anything for them, and that kind of bond is established. Now things are put into perspective because while she doesn't have a great relationship with her dad, he's looking into like mending things with her, and he's actually the team owner of Vancouver Storm, so these guys and whatnot. But because she's not ready to like fix things with him, he is getting older and he's kindly come to the decision that he's just gonna sell his team off, and you know, whoever buys it can deal with whatever comes next. He just wants to retire and whatnot. And now she steps in thinking, okay, she'll finally just come and fulfill his dreams of inheriting it whatnot and kind of taking over, because if he sells it off to like a random third party, they would like change policies and stuff, and the kind of team that's already working for the players, it might get like hampered and stuff, because like I said, these people are her people on the team, even though she hates hockey. Hates in a very loose sense because of the fact that, you know, her father and all her negative feelings attached with it, but still these people are her people and they're kind of, you know, looking to build lives over there, and she doesn't want kind of like the team being sold off to someone else getting in the way of that, because you know, someone's buying a house and someone's getting ready to get married and someone's already having like kids come on the way, and she doesn't want anything with like a sale kind of hampering their own like team playing spirit and, you know, the kind of things that are already working for the team, also like dislocating the players and kind of messing their lives up, which is why she ends up finally giving in to her father's demands and kind of stepping into like a managerial owner sort of position. Except the deal there goes is that she needs to win them like a hockey cup and whatnot. It's called the Stanley Cup, I believe, which it's so funny because it reminds me of that bottle and whatnot, but she needs to hit the team to win that if she wants to keep the team forever and whatnot. So she's like working again tirelessly or back on end and whatnot to bring ends meet. Now bring in Tate, the coach. They're working together, and you know, from the outside, again, he doesn't really come across as like great to her because he is beloved by everyone, but she just doesn't get the hype because he's a close friend of her father's. This is age gap, so she doesn't necessarily like get along with him in the beginning. She doesn't like him, but then again, as they start spending time together because they have the same goal, help the team win before it gets like sold off and whatnot, you know, they start to realize each other. And then she ends up moving into his apartment at some point. She's hanging out with his daughter because he's a single dad. You can definitely see like some chemistry start to build up there, and then suddenly they're like starting to fall in love. But again, it cannot work because we have like a boss and employee relationship here, and because she's only there until the cup is won, and then after that she'll pass on the team to him so he can like look after it with the players' best interest in mind rather than the business. Except, you know, they're hanging out, they're starting to fall for each other despite the time constraints and whatnot, and that's basically the story. And overall, I'll say this book definitely felt longer than it should have been, but it definitely flew by by as well. So I don't really know what kind of complaint I was going with there. All I'll say is, yeah, the plot could have been condensed a bit because there were quite a few unnecessary scenes, but overall, because it is like the final book apparently at the moment in the series, it definitely needed to give you like conclusion on the whole thing overall, which I feel like it handled really well as well. I feel like the whole moments with everyone else on the team and whatnot that you've already read books about, all of the rest of the new players that were being introduced slowly throughout the series, it just felt so good watching them come together as a family and strive towards this one thing they've wanted since the beginning, and then kind of see how their futures end up and where they go from whatever. But then also we got to see these guys romance, and it definitely fell flat for me. Out of all the romances in the series, I particularly hated Hayden and Darcy, so I believe that was the third one because it felt a lot like cheating. And then this one comes along with it because it does not feel like cheating. It doesn't feel like they have any chemistry whatsoever. It almost feels like they were doing weird shit and it was kind of being passed off okay because the two of them are good looking. And so thanks to that, and thanks to the fact that it was kind of cringy and very tropey, and I feel like the author does it well, but this one was just overly tropified to the point where I just did not feel like it was working for the characters. The romance definitely falls in my least favorite category along with that one, but I still enjoyed going along with it because of like the rest of the players coming in and other plot lines being introduced and the team spirit and whatnot. And listen, it flew by anyway. I started like less than 24 hours ago and I'm done at this point, which is why I'm gonna give it 3 stars. Unfortunately kind of low, but I'm still happy I read it. I feel like the rating is kind of lower than it probably would have been if I wouldn't have read it like back to back with our previous banger of a book, but because I did, here we are anyway. I still had a good time overall and I'm done with this at this point. So here we are, we can move on. I'm praying and hoping we get more in the series because this cannot be the end. I love these characters. What do you mean it's over? But here we are anyway. We'll now get back to my Kindle book that has 60% left, because before anyone comes and like starts bashing me in the comments for saying that I'll get to Haley's book next and I picked up something else, it's because I went through like the little list I curated at the beginning of the week of all the new releases that I wanted to hopefully get to in this video, and all the books that are remaining, there were 3 thrillers and 1 which was Haley's book. And let's be so for real, if I read another romance back to back, I am kind of sick of it at the moment because this one definitely slumped me out just a little bit and whatnot, which is why I'm trying the thriller break. And because if I end up reading Haley's book at a point where I'm not sure if I want to get to it, if you know what I mean, then that's kind of sad because I really want to enjoy it. I've been kind of waiting for it for like a few years at this point, ever since she announced it, which is why I figured pick up one of the thrillers, even kind of to like give a break in between probably the monotony of reading so many thrillers back to back, which is why I'm 60% through the next one. I will go finish it out tonight hopefully and come update, and then tomorrow we'll start Haley's book, but it's happening. And until then, I'll see you guys whenever I do with the next book update. But here we are. Hi guys, so it's now Sunday, technically the last day for this video, because I needed to come in and give you my final thoughts on the final books and whatnot before I go ahead and finish like editing this last clip out and then post it, because this video needs to go out tonight, which is why here we are for a few final updates. I did go ahead and firstly finish the Kindle book that I was reading, so it's the new Megan Lally, and I did go ahead and start Haley's book, but I'm not done with her book at this point. I just have a little bit left. So in my current update, I'll be giving you my thoughts and summary and whatnot on this one, and then Haley's book, I'm actually going to go now work on finishing that in the next hour or so and then come speak about it then, before we can kind of wind the vlog up, because I'm not done with it yet, but I will be if I lock in, because I did go ahead and rough cut this video yesterday in the night, so I don't have to like worry about being a little quick at it. I can kind of take my time and it'll still be okay, which is why here we are to kind of update you firstly on this book, because I am done at this point and I have a few things to say, but I haven't been able to come in the past couple of days to update because college has been hectic and there wasn't any time. This one comes out March 31st. It was kindly sent to me as an ARC, so thank you so much to the publishers, because I knew I wanted to get to it at some point and I feel like this video is the perfect excuse. This was also really great to break up a whole romance streak by throwing in like a quick mystery in there, because it's always fun to get to one of these. And this one specifically, we follow this girl called Hannah. This is kind of like a YA thriller, so you need to keep that in mind when you're picturing the characters and their ages, because that's how it's set. She's currently on vacation in spring break with her best friend and her family and whatnot, so with her best friend Emmy, because they kind of want this like last almost like a hurrah before they have to go back to high school and graduate, because after graduation they'll be going their own separate ways and she doesn't know when she'll get to see Emmy next. Because Hannah wants to be a nurse, she'll be going to college for that, and Emmy actually has this thing wherein she's got like a bunch of wanderlust, so she doesn't really want to go to college. She doesn't think that's a right fit for her. She actually wants to go ahead and tour and travel the world and whatnot, and she has this whole like plan laid out with like international travel and stuff, to the point where, like I said, they don't know when they'll see each other next, and they don't want to like hang out in the last days worrying about the exams and the graduation that is to come for high school before they part ways, which is why they're taking this quick like little vacation to Mexico during spring break to kind of have fun, enjoy the beaches, enjoy nice weather, and just have like a good final goodbye wherein they spend enough time together so that they don't feel like they're missing out later. Except as she's doing so, she's also accompanied the rest of Emmy's family on this trip, and that includes Emmy's older brother Jackson, and she's the biggest crush on Jackson for like at least 10 years at this point. And you know, things are a little awkward between them because something happened in the past that's constantly alluded to, but you don't really know what until you get context later. And so it's a little awkward being around him, but she's ready to like put up with it because of the fact that they are still having the best time on vacation. Nothing can ruin it. It's literally picture perfect. Except Emmy starts like a summer fling over there, and it's not supposed to go anywhere, but the last day of their like vacation and whatnot, her new boyfriend, the summer fling and whatnot, or spring fling I guess, and he's like a rich guy, and so he's really trying to just press Emmy and whatnot, because at some point he really just wants to like join her on her expeditions and her trips and whatnot, which is really weird because they just met him and whatnot, but he still really wants to like put on like a good foot, even though he's like a little weird and whatnot. So he's kind of trying to buy Emmy's love by like getting private charter to kind of take them out to sea, to have this like one final fun day spent outside in the vacation before they have to get back home and stuff. And everyone's all on board for it, except when they actually get to the dockyard and realize that Ben has overpaid this one guy with a sketchy sailboat to take them out to the middle of the sea, because none of the other charters are willing to go because there's like a horrible storm outside that seems to be forecast to come later in the day and possibly be like fatal and whatnot. But the guy they've paid and whatnot to take them, he's been given a bunch of money, which is why he's ready to go, despite the fact that there's like probably dangerous consequences if they do. And so, ignoring all signs, they end up going anyway. Except as they get out to sea a few hours later, they realize they're lost in the middle of the sea, in the middle of nowhere. The storm incoming, they need to kind of survive and figure out what they do next, and slowly it just keeps getting worse hour by hour because they need to survive. At some point something happens, so it's only the kids running the boat, and then there's also the fact that they've got limited like food supplies and stuff. They're falling sick on the boat, whatnot. Now the goal is basically just to make it back to land alive, but then also there's like a bunch of other dynamics happening with the group that's on the boat. So there's Emmy, there's Jackson, there's Hannah, and there's Ben, the boyfriend, and you know, there's weird shit going on, which is why it's an interesting book, but I feel like it's not my favorite, simply because I feel like the survival was fun, but it wasn't enough to hook my attention, because I feel like it was just the basic of bare minimum things happening until the very end, until there was actually stuff happening. And because I was bored, was mentally checked out until like the one final twist in the book actually came, because the rest of it was just like normal, I guess, dramatics. But the final thing that happened, that was the one thing that truly got me, and it kind of saved the book from being like a horrible, or at least poorly enjoyed one in my opinion, because at the moment at least I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars, simply because I was bored throughout. It felt like a lot was happening, but here we are anyway. I'm done with it at this point. That one thing that happens at the very end though, insane. The other book I've read by the author also has something like this happening in the end of that, which makes me wonder if all of her books are this way, wherein there's something crazy that happens towards the end and suddenly you kind of wish you hadn't read the book in the first place, because that twist, it made me heartbroken. That's all I'm gonna say. Apart from that, yeah, I'm done at this point. I haven't really thought about it since I've finished, and I've been grateful to have finished because I didn't have the best time reading it, but at the same time I did want something to read on Kindle before bed at night every single day, and this was a good, I guess, like pastime, so I'm gonna give it that. Happy I'm done anyway. It did flow by though, so I didn't like hate that and whatnot, because it definitely flew by really fast, even though the pacing was kind of slow, which is why I don't know how to really describe it. Wasn't my favorite, but I'm happy I'm done, which is why moving on now, we'll go work on Haley's book, and I'll update you guys now whenever next I'm done with it, so we can kind of speak about that and then conclude the vlog, because I have lots of things to say on that as well. But yeah, everything's happening. It's a slow work in progress, and I'll see you all once it's finally done. Okay guys, so it's much later now. I went ahead, had dinner, done all the rest of the things and whatnot. But at this point, I'm done with the book, so I've come in to give you all of my updates and whatnot, because looking back in context, I do believe this was probably my most anticipated read of the year, and it feels weird having completed it, but now that I have so much to discuss, because I need to give you like a plot theory and whatnot, summaries, my own thoughts and opinions, and so there's a lot to get into. But before any of that, really quick, I just wanted to mention that this is Haley's debut book. She has been speaking about, I feel like for a few years now, her dream of wanting to become a published author, and I feel like there's a lot of people out there who have that specific dream, but there's only a minority who are actually able to go ahead and fulfill it. So before anything, and before any of my criticisms come into play, I just wanted to applaud the fact that she was still able to go ahead and persevere through the entire process, because it is quite the process. Keeping up with her online, watching her go through every stage of it, it is definitely excruciating to look at, that she was still able to go through it to kind of fulfill that one dream of hers, and she actually was able to get done with it and whatnot. So kudos to her for that, because again, that's like a whole thing for a person to actually get through with, and she was able to, which is why it won't be as harsh as I probably would be looking back in consideration, because again, this is someone's dream that she was able to like fulfill after so many years of hard work. And like on the internet, it's very easy to have like polarizing opinions on like a controversial subject, especially considering the fact that if it goes viral on TikTok, probably everyone has an opinion on it. But this is also something she worked years and put her life into and whatnot, and so I feel privileged having to actually gotten to read this at this point, which is why even though I'm done with it, and even though I have obviously my own things to speak about it, my own criticisms to give as a cynical reader, I still am proud of the fact that she was able to actually fulfill that one dream of hers. That's just something I really quickly wanted to mention, because she worked hard for this, so she finally got it, and again, bravo to her. Now about the actual story, we follow this girl called Blair, and if you've heard the song Ruin the Friendship by Taylor Swift, that's literally this book, because we have Blair and her best friend Declan. This is a friends to lovers second chance romance, and growing up they're basically inseparable and whatnot, except they start developing feelings for each other as they hang out. This is past timeline, by the way, and so one day they actually end up kissing, and that kind of ruins the friendship technically, because now they realize they cannot be best friends anymore, they want something more. But as they start to pursue that, I feel like the immaturity of that one impulsive decision and stuff to come beyond that kind of results in them getting heartbroken and realizing that they cannot really make it work, to the point where now they don't speak anymore. And the most, I guess, heartbreaking thing that can probably happen to best friends happens to them. The fact that one day they're best friends, one day they're more, and suddenly now they're strangers in each other's lives. They don't even speak anymore, they don't have like communication and contact anymore, because things are over between them. And so that's past timeline. Present timeline is actually 4 years later. She did end up going away to college, and now she's come back to her hometown of Seabrook, because her great aunt Lottie is actually fallen ill. She's dying, and Blair needs to come back to kind of help her mom look after her and whatnot. Except as she's back, she ends up going ahead and taking this job at a coffee shop, and as it turns out, the manager and the boss of that place is Declan. So while he does end up giving her the job, they keep bumping into each other, and there's all this like chemistry and tension that keeps coming back to the surface, to the point where she now realizes that she still has feelings for him. She hasn't moved on like she thought she did, because being back in the same proximity as him is kind of taking her back to the days when they used to be together, and even when it was just being friends and whatnot, just friends. Suddenly she realizes that she wants more. He probably does as well from the signals he's giving, but they're not really sure how they can make it work, because the things that got between them in the first place, their traumas and whatnot, it might come back to the surface again. And there's all this like grief and other things going on, which factors into the overall play of the story. So they're trying to figure out their own like status, and the fact that she's probably going back to New York after she's done and whatnot, to the high powered job that's waiting for her. So there's like a timeline on all of this. And all I'll say is, even though this kind of reminds me of the stereotypical like second chance summer romance, I feel like this was still fun because of a bunch of factors, but I'll get to them in a bit. Before I get done with my criticisms first, because I always like to get the bad out of the way so we can enjoy the good later. Firstly being the fact that Blair as a character, she felt so selfish in some bits, because I don't know, you just read it and there are certain things she says that make her feel a little out of touch with reality, and she just needs to go touch some grass for a little bit, because I do believe that she's gone through obviously so many like life-changing, important, hard things, but just the way she chooses to deal with them feel kind of childish and not really fun to go along with. Now Declan as a character, he is basically the cardboard cutout for the stereotypical perfect book boyfriend. Any trait that another perfect book boyfriend would probably have in a different book, he's got it, to the point where it's always fun to read about, but sometimes when you read too many perfect book boyfriends, I feel like they kind of lose their appeal and charm because it becomes too one-dimensional. There's nothing like keeping them different from every other book boyfriend that you've read about, and he is perfect in that sense, do not get me wrong, he's an actual sweetheart, there's so many great scenes with him, but I feel like because he's made a little too perfect, it's almost not relatable, he's almost not human, because it feels too flat of a character. So that, I'm not really sure how that comes across as a complaint. It is a backhanded compliment in a way, because she made a great male lead, but I do wish we had some other things coming out along with the emotional connection that was formed, because sometimes I felt like it was lacking, and so there was that. The third thing I wanted to mention is the fact that now if you combine the two of these characters together, it feels like they had no chemistry whatsoever the entire book, because I was waiting for the tension, I was waiting for the romance, and it just feels like these two awkward random characters were thrown in together as a romance and whatnot, and considering the fact that the main plot, the main genre of this book is a romance, it did not work in my opinion, because there's none of that yearning, none of that tension, none of the, I guess, chemistry that we were longing for. Because, coming to my fourth point, I feel like her writing style is very much just telling, not showing. So the entire time you're being told and you're supposed to understand from her telling you that, you know, they're in love, they've been in love, they're falling back in love. But it doesn't really work because there are not any scenes showing you that, and so it's really hard to take away from what she's telling you, which is why in my opinion it didn't work. So there was that. But now moving on to prose, I did enjoy her writing style. I think it was so fun. Just the way she writes, you can kind of tell she's a reader, because there were so many incredible quotes I got out of this. Probably my most fun part of reading this book was her writing style, because it was beautiful. There was so much fun that I was able to derive out of it. I definitely feel like it's very poetic and it's very like Emily Henry-esque. It definitely reminded me a lot of my favorite book ever, Beach Read, and you know, had a lot of fun with that. And again, just the way she writes, it's lyrical and beautiful in this like raw way. And I know a lot of people again have opinions and thoughts on that online, as people usually do, but for me personally it really worked in the favor of it, because now, even though I didn't necessarily enjoy this one a lot, I cannot wait for her next book if she ends up coming out with another one, whenever she does, just because I want to get more of that specific writing style. Don't think I've ever read anything exactly like it, which is why I probably enjoyed it, but also I feel like just the lyricism of it is beautiful. And listen, if I can get more of it, what makes you think I won't go for it? You know what I mean? Now back to another couple criticisms that I forgot to mention. The first being, we keep speaking about grief as a subject in this book, and I definitely feel like it's very relatable if you've gone through losing a loved one. There were a couple things that were spoken about that unfortunately struck home for me because I've gone through it, but I feel like if you haven't, it's not a lot you can kind of keep up with, because it speaks about grief in this very specific way, wherein if you've gone through it, you understand it, but also it's written in the way that you're trying to connect with the character it's written for, Lottie, her great aunt, who she describes as a second mother at some point. But because there's no connection established with Lottie the character, and as a reader you don't get to see her dynamic for too long, despite again being told what she's done for Blair in her life, I feel like it did not hit me too hard what happened with her in the story and whatnot, the grief that came with Lottie. The grief hit me only because I've gone through something similar in my own personal life. So I feel like that definitely negates what the book stands for in a way, but I don't know, I still feel like the writing was beautiful, so that's definitely a good takeaway. It's just, I wish there was more, and I wish there were more scenes established with Lottie as a character, so you could probably grieve for her when the time came, and you could probably, I guess, go through with the motions because you connected to her as a character. But because I didn't personally in this, I didn't. So that was something. The next thing I want to mention is the fictional town of Seabrook that it's taking place in, and while it is definitely an aesthetic place, there were some descriptions of it that just made it feel like almost like a cozy, wholesome, hallmarky place, because it definitely feels like some of the descriptions, the author kind of looked up Pinterest aesthetics for like a summer beachy town and then kind of wrote them down the way she felt like it. It doesn't feel very realistic, and I don't mean that as a complaint. It's always fun to kind of read books like that sometimes, but this one specifically, it felt overly like aesthetic and whatnot, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just feels like it's very Pinteresty rather than the real appeal of a real place that probably inspired her, which is why I don't know, that just really stuck out to me, because you know how when you watch like certain like comfort TV shows and there's always like a town in the background and whatnot, and it always seems picture perfect, but you know it's only picture perfect because it's a movie that's set to be that way. That's the kind of feeling I got with the town. And again, nothing wrong with that, but that just felt a little almost artificial and waxy to me rather than real and just fun to like read about and relate with, which is why that's something I wanted to mention. Last couple of things that I really quickly wanted to speak about is the third act conflict in this book. I did not enjoy that, and the way it was carried out, the way you tried to understand why they did not like communicate for 4 years, that wasn't fun. It felt a little too convenient to the plot. I definitely do wish we could have gone deeper and had like a different outcome and a different almost like solution to what was going on, because the reasoning you got behind it felt too easy for the plot. Maybe something different would have changed my opinion, but this one specifically I just did not enjoy it and it wasn't for me. And the last thing I quickly wanted to mention was the fact that these characters, while it is set as a YA romance almost, they are definitely older. They're definitely older than me, but some of the decisions they kind of make and the situations they are put in and the way they choose to deal with them feels very immature and childish, again like I said earlier. So that wasn't very fun to read about, because they're older, would have expected a little more thought going into, you know, the way they act and behave. But again, nothing wrong with that. That's just my own personal opinion. Maybe, you know, there were certain scenes where I felt like they should have grown up, but also in regards to their trauma and the things that they've gone through that I probably haven't gone through, so I cannot connect and relate on that sphere, it makes sense. So here we are anyway. I'm done with this book now. Still happy that I read it and still grateful that I got to, because I've been waiting so long for this, literally years since she announced that she was first writing a book, which is why I'm done at this point. I'm gonna give it 3 stars. Not the best book I've ever read, but certainly not the worst either, and it definitely does not deserve all the hate it's been getting online, because again, keep in mind this was someone's dream that someone was trying to accomplish, and someone worked really hard to get this out into the world, and so that's definitely something we should appreciate, which is why here we are, done with it at this point, and I'm happy that I still got to read it, and I cannot wait now again if she does come out with a different book, because I know it's going to be fun anyway. The literary fiction almost aspect of this, wherein you got to see other tropes and other sort of themes being discussed apart from the romance, were definitely fun to go along with. I enjoyed that more than the romance, and you know, maybe one day if she writes a different genre too, would definitely pick that up, because that was fun in this aspect. And yeah, now I'm done with Haley's book. Feels so weird to say, but along with that, now we have also reached the end of this vlog. If you guys did have like a fun time coming along with me, definitely like, comment, share, subscribe. YouTube things, you know how to do them. And now definitely also let me know if you all enjoyed coming along with me, watching me kind of read some of my most anticipated new releases for the year, because listen, if you all liked it, we maybe can bring it back for a part 2 or whatnot later in the year when some more come out, and kind of compile and read it all together in 1 week, because this truly was like the perfect week ever. I felt like a kid in a candy store, got to read some of my most exciting books that came out and whatnot. Harry Styles' new album dropped, so that's amazing. Sarah J. Maas came out and announced the next couple ACOTAR books with release dates and page count, so that's also incredible. And so overall, I had the best time ever. I feel like this was truly one of the most perfect weeks, and look, I don't think it can get better than this. So here we are. Now that we have reached the end of this video now, I'll see you all directly for next week's video, which is also going to be a really fun one that I've been waiting a little bit to record, because the concept, when you all get to watch it, listen, just know that it's for the fangirls and it's going to be a really fun one. So until then, I'll see you guys directly next week, and take care, stay safe. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and now I'll see you all. So that's it, and bye.